Jay here for Stretford, Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm in the studio. We are live talking about all things Manchester United, all the latest Manchester United news. Make sure you are getting involved in the chat and the comments and hit that like button too. And if you've not done so, please subscribe to the channel. Now, this is the morning after the night before what could be described as one of the most underwhelming transfer windows ever for Manchester United. Now, I'm not knocking Patrick Dorgu or Aiden Heaven, two good signings coming into Manchester United. That is a positive. But we are currently in one of our, well, in fact, it probably is our lowest ever Premier League position in the league at this stage. We're crying out for goals. We haven't got any goals in the team. The strikers aren't scoring, and we didn't get a striker in. So it does feel a little bit deflating, if I'm being honest. Now, is this all part of a means to an end? The ends being we're going to go big in the summer transfer window. Hopefully, we'll have to wait and see. But at the minute, it does feel a little bit like, wow, Manchester United not really doing the business we were hoping they were going to do. Let me know what you think. Get involved in the chat and the comments, and we will get into it. Because I'll be honest with you, I didn't really expect us to sign anyone. At one point, it looked like Tyrell was going to come in, but he felt like one more for the future than for someone who could come in and immediately start banging them in. There was talk that maybe Christopher Nkunku was going to come in. That one, I felt a little bit more like it made a little bit more sense to me. But again, it wasn't like, oh, he's going to come in and absolutely smash it. He just felt it was another striker, another option. Instead, we haven't brought any strikers in. Marcus Rashford and Anthony have left. Now, no, they're not really strikers. They're attackers, though. Neither of them were getting in the side, but we've got fewer attacking options at the end of the window than we had at the beginning. So it's not a great window, is it, if we're being brutally honest with what's gone on at Manchester United. But if we go big in the summer, if we get Victor Gyökeres, if that's the plan, then maybe we can stomach it. I worry what Ruben Amorim's got to work with between now and the end of the season, because if we're not careful, he could be in all sorts of trouble by the end of the season. If we finish sort of in the bottom half of the table and haven't won out, the pressure's going to be on for him to deliver sort of early doors next season. Let me know what you think. I don't want to be too negative, but we have to be honest, don't we? Richard Evans, Colin Couple-Ditch, Notch, Pathogenics, all in the super chat. David Dewsnip, all in the super chat. Stanton Notch says, this is the fewest attacking options I've ever known by any club. It is kind of weird, isn't it, how few options we've got. If you were to actually break it down in terms of like Premier League goals, how many Premier League goals are in Manchester United's side at the minute? Like, how many goals have we actually scored amongst this team? Bruno Fernandes obviously scored a lot of Premier League goals. Garnacho scored a few. Ahmad, has scored, I think he's got about 6 this season, maybe a couple last season. There's not many, is there? It's not a side or a squad that has a lot of Premier League goals in it. And that's the concern. Let's get into the no striker thing that sort of we were talking about. There's an article here by Samuel Luckhurst in the Manchester Evening News. It says, why Manchester United did not sign a striker on transfer deadline day. I mean, that is the question we're all asking ourselves. This is sort of last night. It's come out this morning. But if you look at it, it says there will not be a new forward coming in at Manchester United before the transfer window closes at 11 p.m. tonight. But I think there's been an update originally from last night. It's been an updated one about an hour ago. If we scroll up, we can read what the reason is. Manchester United have prioritised summer spending amid their decision not to recruit a goal scorer in the winter transfer window, with the new forward set to be targeted in the closed season. United do not expect any more incomings, right? We know that. So it does look as though it's going to be all about the summer. Now, we spoke to Dharmesh Seth yesterday morning, and he said something similar. He said he could see Manchester United going for a player like Giovanni Kenda or Victor Gyökeres in the summer transfer window. He thought that we prioritise a striker then rather than now. Now, I get that. We do want to make the right signings in the summer, and you can say, okay, we bring in someone now, he's just going to be surplus to requirements when we bring in Gyökeres in the summer. But I still think you can have both. I think you could bring in someone, even if it was just a loan or a short-term deal or whatever, to come in and try and carry some of this burden when it comes to the lack of goals. I know there's not exactly loads of goal scorers out there that are free agents or that are available to loan or whatever, but you've got a scouting team. You've got a CEO who's got all this footballing experience. You've got a director of football, whatever Jason Wilcox's title is, who's, come from Southampton via Manchester City, who's got all this experience of dealing with clubs and stuff like that. Surely some of them have no players that are available, no players that could come in on a short term and do a job for Manchester United. This is the concern for me. I look at that team and I just think we could struggle for the rest of the season. And where does that leave Ruben Amorim next season? is he going to have to sort of deliver straight away? Because if he doesn't, people might go, oh, Ineos might go, is he the right man for the job? I know I sound like I'm being melodramatic, but let's look at what we're seeing. We're seeing a team that is consistently failing to score in the Premier League. I'm talking about the Premier League in particular. I know we've had a decent run in the Cups, but you look in the Premier League, the likes of Brighton, Bournemouth, Newcastle, obviously Crystal Palace, all beating us. And one of the biggest reasons they beat us is because we're not scoring enough goals. We're just not. You look at those games I mentioned there, how many times did we even score in those games? I think, was it against Brighton? I can't remember. There wasn't many, was there? We're just not scoring enough goals at all. Abner Werner says, can City seeded more than us in the Premier League? Issue is goals. I completely agree. And that's the worry I've got. That's the one that's a little bit disappointed. It's obvious it wasn't working with the manager and Marcus Rashford. I get why Marcus Rashford has gone out the exit door. I get why Anthony has gone out the exit door, because I've never thought for 1 minute, or maybe not since his first season, or halfway through his first season, if I'm being brutally honest, that he was truly a Manchester United player. But I would have thought someone would have come in in the attacking sense during this window. Let's talk about Marcus Rashford. What's your next story, producer Ben? Is it Marcus Rashford? It's this one. No, it's fine. It's my bad. Man United transfers. Ruben Amorim's first window comes to an end with 30 million spent, but no forward signed. So we've not really spent much money. 30 million quid. We know we're struggling. We know we're struggling with PSR. You've got to cut your cloth accordingly and all that. I understand that we can't just spend money we're not able to spend. We were linked with a lot of players. You can see him there. We were linked with Mattis Tell. We were linked with Christopher Nkunku. Sorry, just go down a minute. Oh, sorry, Leon Bailey as well. I think he's another one. Yeah, was linked. We didn't get any of them. And in the end, you saw Anthony and Marcus Rashford. The main signings going out the door were Marcus Rashford, Anthony, and a few youngsters went on loan as well. And Patrick Dorgu came in. And I think Aidan Heaven came in as well. So you can see it. Goal scoring has been a persistent problem this season for United side, which sits 13th in the Premier League as the window shuts. They have scored just 28 goals in 24 Premier League matches this season, so a per night average of 1.17. Only Leicester, Ipswich and Southampton average less. So all those teams there, Leicester, Ipswich, Southampton, Everton, are pretty much near the bottom of the table. I know we are because we're 13th, but that says all you need to know. But United ended the window with fewer attacking options than they began with. Anthony and Rashford have departed, while two defenders, Dorgu and Heaven, have arrived. So we've now got less attacking options, or fewer, I should say. Fewer strawberries, less cream, than we had at the beginning of the window. That is a concern for me. That is. I'm not going to lie to you, but we'll see. Young Foodie Vendor says, sorry, bro, but why we spend big in summer? We have not Europe and we have the money now. Why are we not spending January to secure Europe? What are your thoughts? I get your point. I do. David Ellingsworth says, Amorim told us this would happen. We will suffer. Can't believe when I read in live chats that people want him out already. It's madness. What? Anyone that wants Ruben Amorim out now is not well, or the trolling, or the trying to get attention, because that is, quite frankly, ludicrous. It just is. Like, you can get... I'm not saying that you can't criticise Ruben Amorim. Of course you can. You can say, like, look, some of the results haven't been good enough and he perhaps should have done better tactically in certain games or whatever. I understand that. But the idea you want him gone, well, you've seen what he's inherited. You've seen the mess we're in. He's not had a window, really, has he? This window doesn't count. Not even kicked a ball since it's ended. And plus, we've only brought in two players, one of which is for the future. So, he needs backing properly. He's moved in on certain players, and then he needs to bring his own players in. You've got to at least wait. For me, this might be unpopular. I think you've got to wait until the end of next season to make an assessment on Ruben Amorim. I think you give him the full season, where he's got a pre-season, he's got a summer window, he can bring in his players, and you give him to the end of that season. And at the end of that season, then you assess it. Now, don't get me wrong, if we lose every game between the start of the season and Christmas, I don't expect him to still be there. He'll go, but within reason, I think you go, look, let's see what you're doing. Let's see what you're doing long term. That's what we did with Sir Alex Ferguson. I know it was a different era, but Sir Alex Ferguson came in and he laid the foundations. Now, people forget, though, we go on about how 89, 90, whatever, we're in the wrong end of the table, bottom half of the table. But he did finish second, I think, in his first full season. So he bought himself some time in that respect. But the reason he bought himself a lot of time was because everyone could see what he was doing behind the scenes. He was sorting out the scouting system. I think he tripled the amount of scouts. He was getting rid of some players that just weren't performing at the levels you need. He was changing the culture at the club. That is one thing that Ruben Amorim is doing, changing the culture at the club. That is a big shift. You don't do that overnight, and you don't do it by just moving a couple of players on. You have to do it gradually, and you have to do it when you've sort of rotated or moved on 7 or 8 players and brought in a similar amount. Sounds drastic, but that's what we need. Drastic times need drastic measures, and we are indeed in drastic times at Manchester United. Tamil says, I back this manager. We should all remember these are not his players. Josie Lima says he needs time. Notch says, if people think another manager can get scoring goals and get Europe next year with those 4 forwards, I don't know what to say. I agree, Notch. This is always the thing, innit? I don't think many managers in the world could get a tune out of this squad. I really don't. It is a squad that is lacking in so many areas, but the goals thing is the main one, and that is not all on Ruben Amorim. Very little of it is. He's working with what he's got, and the fact that Marcus Rashford basically didn't perform in training, and then when he was called out for it and dropped from the squad, then turned around 2 days later or a day later and told a journalist he wanted a new start, a new challenge, just hamstrings Ruben Amorim even more. We could have seen a reaction there maybe from Marcus where he went, right, I've been dropped for the derby, I'm not having this. I'm going to pull my socks up, I'm going to get on it in training, get back into United side and smashing goals like I did for Eric Ten Hag in his first season. But he didn't. He spoke to Henry Winter and he said, I want to leave. So that doesn't help, does it? And I love Marcus Rashford, you know I always have, but let's call it as it is. That was a situation where Ruben Amorim was left with nowhere to go. He couldn't pick a player that didn't want to be here and that wasn't doing the things he was asked to do. Completely undermines him. Let's talk about Rashford. He's gone to Aston Villa, and I do wish him well. I don't want to hate on Marcus Rashford. He has enough of it already. Jamie Jackson in The Guardian says, Marcus Rashford is extremely unlikely to play competitively for Manchester United again, even if Ruben Amorim is no longer the head coach, with the relationship between the forward and his boyhood club near irreparable. Now, you can see there, it says competitively. I think the reason the word competitively is put in there is because he might come back in the summer and play pre-season. That's not beyond the realms of possibility. That if it doesn't work out at Villa, or even if it does, there might be a situation where he comes back, he's part of the tour, and then he gets a permanent move. We'll have to wait and see how it sort of pans out. But we saw it, didn't we, with Jadon Sancho? I think it says here, if you scroll down a little bit, there remains an outside possibility that Rashford could play again. No, sorry, this is backing up what I'm saying. That he could play again for United in pre-season should Amorim have departed. Last summer, Jadon Sancho and Eric Ten Hag, Amorim's predecessor, reached a rapprochement after their fallout, which led to Sancho playing in warm-up games. Sancho then joined Chelsea on a season's loan. So there might be a scenario where Marcus Rashford comes back to United in the summer, plays a couple of games in pre-season, and then moves on. Might. I've said before, I've said it for the last month or so, that I think he's kicked his last ball for Manchester United. Maybe he does play him friendly, but I don't think he'll. I agree with James Jackson. I don't think he'll play competitively for Manchester United. It's weird, isn't it? Because Marcus Rashford is a boyhood Manchester United player, come through the academy. At one point, looked like he was on course to challenge Wayne Rooney for being our top goal scorer. Wasn't that long ago. Obviously, they had that stellar season where he banged in 30 goals. You wanted a response from him, didn't you? When he was dropped, you wanted to. I did. I wanted to see him try and prove Ruben Amorim wrong, and it felt like he just didn't have the heart for that. He didn't. He lost his enthusiasm for Manchester United, and you could kind of see that, couldn't you? Even before Ruben Amorim arrived, last season wasn't great for Marcus. He didn't look happy. It's a constant stick that's used to beat him, and there's a reason people keep bringing it up, because it's true. He just does not look like a player who's enjoying his football at Manchester United. Now maybe he'll go to Aston Villa and put a smile on his face and banging goals and do well there, and I hope he does. I hope he gets his permanent move there, and I wish him well, but it certainly wasn't happening at Manchester United, and it certainly wasn't happening under Ruben Amorim. Cyrus says Ineos's goal was to bring in a coach to maximise the squad potential. Is it safe to say Amorim has failed? We are hopeless without new signings. I don't know if Ineos's goal was to bring in a coach purely to maximise the squad potential. I think any coach has to do that. That has to be part of your remit. When you're a coach and you go into a club, it's right, you've got to get the best. Maximise the squad potential is literally another way of saying get the best out of these players. Every manager, every coach should be doing that. That should always be your instructions. I want you to come here and get the best out of these players. But another aspect of your managerial sort of stipulation should be you bring in good players, or you work with the players that we bring in and get the best out of them as well. We know we need to bring in reinforcements. It's not Ruben Amorim's fault. We have got strikers that cannot score goals. We have got strikers that had basically one good season in Serie A and then got a massive money move, or a big money move, to Manchester United. Now, I still think there's a player I think there's players in Joshua Zirkzee and Rasmus Højlund. I think you might be able to get a tune out of him, but I don't put this solely on the manager, because I think, in if we're being brutally honest, neither of those two players should be starting for Manchester United. Now, the other day, he dropped both of them, But the only issue with that is he had to drop him and play more or less Kobbie Mainoo as a striker. He ain't a striker, and that move backfired. But that gives you some idea of how sort of struggling Ruben Amorim is, how much he's struggling to cope with the lack of goals. When you're dropping your strikers and playing a teenage midfielder up front who's never played there, certainly not professionally, because you just don't feel like you can trust your strikers, or you don't think they're going to be able to get you over the line against the Crystal Palace side, who, whilst they're very good and have got a good record at Old Trafford, they're not unbeatable. We weren't playing prime Real Madrid. You should be able to beat Crystal Palace at Old Trafford, and yet we couldn't. Let's talk about Gary Neville. He's been quite critical, has he? Let's see. Gary Neville, very critical, has launched a scathing assessment of the first few months of the Ruben Amorim era at Manchester United in the wake of the club's most recent setback. If you scroll down and see what he's had to say for himself. You can see we know the issues that have gone on. Gary Neville's predicted that things will only go downhill for United before the end of the campaign, and indeed the current progression or lack thereof could hinder next season's plans too. That's a big issue there, isn't it? That is one that you do worry about. He says here, Gary Neville, I thought it would get better when Ruben Amorim came in. He said on the Gary Neville podcast, I thought the enthusiasm and the new system, I thought they'd buy into it, the players, and we'd see a bounce keep going. We've seen the absolute opposite. It's got a lot worse, and that's surprising. But there's going to be a lot more pain towards the end of the season, and it's going to be damaging. They're obviously going to stick with Ruben Amorim, but the more you lose, the more difficult it is to convince the players of the idea that he talked about in the early days. You need the players to buy into it, but if they lose with it and they keep getting criticised, the spotlight comes on them more, and the fans are leaving unhappy. You can't keep losing. It will depress the thoughts of the players to the point whereby they'll lose faith with the idea. It'll damage the start of next season. He has to do something. He can't change his approach because he's died in a ditch on it, and rightly so. I think he's lost more games at Manchester United since he's come than he lost in the last 75 at Sporting. He's in this predicament, any Ruben Amorim now, where I think he's gone too far with his system, 3-4-2-1, to go back. And I kind of get it. I get it, because the whole idea, the whole reason you're going through this short-term pain is for long-term gain, that these players eventually get used to this system, can play in this system, and that everyone knows this is how we play now at Manchester United under this manager, under this head coach. So if you suddenly went, actually, forget everything I've just been saying for the last 4 months, or whatever it is, we're going to go to 4 at the back, you'll go 4-3-3, people will go, well, what was the point in all that? The whole point you made about we need to do this because it's going to be the sort of the new philosophy or the new style. I hate the word philosophy, but let's use it. Style at Manchester United, and now you've gone back on it. Why did we lose all those games then to Brighton and and Palace and Bournemouth and all the rest of it? Why don't we just do this earlier? So I think he probably does need to stick with it. I'm hoping Patrick Dorgu can help in that respect, because he's a player that naturally fits into that system, that can play as a left wing back. Then you can maybe move Delo onto the right side, where he's a little bit better than he is on the left. Maybe that helps you. We'll have to wait and see, because there's too many players that are struggling. There really is. Let me know what you think. Get involved in the chat in the comments. Let us know what you think about Ruben Amorim, about what Gary Neville said. Do you agree? Do you think he has died under this? Do you think he has to change the system? Do you think he's got to stick to his guns? Do you think the players need to take more responsibility? I want to hear your thoughts. Miski, hi Jay, Miski here, hope you're doing well mate, you too, my brother. Amorim, says JB, has to stick to his guns. Palace showed it's a good system. Yeah, Oliver Glasner used it at Palace, done it. It's a system that can work, it's just not working for Manchester United at the minute, although it has worked at a few games away from home, hasn't it? Worked at Anfield, it worked at the Etihad, it worked at the Emirates. It's just strange, it just doesn't work at Old Trafford. Sean Lim says, these players must be bad at school. Months passed and they still, I think he means don't understand the tactics. David Ellingsworth says, Glazers have succeeded. All the heat is on Jim now and attention taken away from them. Never forget who did this. It's a great point. Never forget that it is the Glazers that got us into this mess. They saddled us with all this debt. We've had a decade of just mismanagement and ineptitude, and we are suffering for it. Even the point where the stadium's got a rack and ruin. That's on the Glazers. Jay's Parrott says, Jay, I work in financial regulation in the UK. They are likely using this 6 months to push back against the PSR limits. Rashford, Malacia's, Anthony's wages plus Sancho money gives wiggle room. Thank you for that input. Listen, I am terrible when it comes to finances. I'm terrible to understanding finances. I can't even look after my own bank account. So I'm glad that someone who knows it a little bit about it is giving us a little bit of positivity there. I think if you can look, there's a means. This is a means to an end. This is what I spoke to earlier about maybe going for Gokares in the summer. If this is to sort of deal with the PSR issue, great. We need to do that. I just worry. I do worry in the meantime what is going to happen to Ruben Amorim and his reputation and the faith that some of these players have in him if we keep losing football matches. Let's talk about some of the outgoings at Manchester United. A couple of loanees, a couple of loansters. The United, it's here, this is in the Mirror. Loan deals for Sam Mather and Lewis Jackson, who have joined League Two strugglers Tranmere Rovers until the end of the season. Mather, an England under-19 international, and Jackson, who's been named among the substitutes for the third team, have been regulars for United's under-21 side this season. Sam Mather, a couple of years ago, he was doing bits when he in the academy. He was a big name in the academy, I think, on that FA Youth Cup winning run. And then it was sort of not weird. It wasn't nothing weird, but he was waiting to see what was going to happen with him. I was waiting to see, is he a player that's going to, get involved in the first team squad? Is he going to go out on loan? What's going to happen? What league was that? So just bring that up again. I missed it. Tranmere. What league are they in? League Two. Thank you. So League Two, it's one of those, isn't it, where you have to do something there, don't you? Really, at League Two level to sort of show that you've got anything about you. If you're going to come back to Manchester United and maybe have a future at Manchester United, or if you're going to go elsewhere and carve a career out as a professional footballer, I think that is a decent enough standard, but it's not a standard where you go, okay, is this going to be too much for them? League Two should be fine. We wish them well, as always. Malacia. This is a weird one, and by the time you watch this may have already been resolved. Now, Malacia to PSV says here, what paper is this from, sorry? Football 365, so it's not a newspaper, it's a website. It says United will wrap up a loan move for Tyrell Malacia today with the Red Devils left back in Holland. I don't know why they put in Holland in inverted brackets. It's like it's got some other meaning. Oh, he's in Holland, if you know what I mean. Yeah, he's in the Netherlands. Cecilia moved to PSV Eindhoven, according to Fabrizio Romano. Although United didn't get all the players in they were wanting, it was a fairly successful transfer window. Right, for starters, leave that there. Everything about that sentence is shocking, including the spelling. Although Man United didn't get in all the players they were wanting, whatever, right, okay, it was a fairly successful January transfer window for the Red Devils. It wasn't a successful window for the Red Devils by any stretch of the imagination. Yes, we brought in a couple of good players, but we are severely lacking, and anyone with half a brain knows that. That is a terrible sentence. We'll have to wait and see what happens with Tyrell Malacia. I've now lost faith in this website and everything else it's saying, although it's quoting Fabrizio Romano. Hopefully they've copied and pasted the quote right, and it says PSV Eindhoven are closing in on a deal for Malacia from Man United. Agreement at final stages, medical. But let's have a little butcher's hook here now and see if there's anything, just as we're the latest I can see, it just says the same thing. Romano, PSV Eindhoven set to fix details of Malacia's loan move from United today. Malacia already in Holland to get the move done. He's not put in Holland in inverted commas, he's just put he's in Holland. It looks like Malacia's going to go. Look, we did a video on Malacia a few weeks ago. Pretty sad what happened with him, with his injuries. I think he lost a close family member. I can't remember who it was, but someone who was very close. So forgive me, I've forgotten which one it was. But that was during the time he was injured as well. He had an operation that didn't go according to plan. Missed, about 18 months. Came back, did his best. You can see he's not at the levels that we probably need. And it's a shame. But Tyrell Malacia was a punt worth taking. I don't think it was a disastrous signing because he would cost so little. It was worth just, 12 million quid? When we brought him in, was it Feyenoord we brought him in from? It was worth doing, in my opinion. And I think, although it went a bit south, there was a decent season out of him, wasn't there? Where he played a big part in turning things around after those first two defeats to Brighton and Brentford under Eric Ten Hag. Came into the side, we had the wins against Liverpool, Southampton, Leicester, Arsenal. He played in all those games, I think. Gave Luke Shaw a bit of a kick up the backside, which he sometimes needs. And also, he featured sporadically throughout that first season in what was a pretty positive season for Manchester United, finishing third, getting to the FA Cup final and winning the Carabao Cup, of course. The next season he gets injured, doesn't really feature, just doesn't go according to plan. But I wish Tyrell Malacia well. And I think when you look at the moves and the signings we've made under Eric Ten Hag that haven't worked out, and it almost feels like nearly all of them at the minute, I think Malacia shouldn't be sort of criticised too much because it was pennies in the modern era. How often did you get a player a 20-odd-year-old that comes into the United squad and plays a lot of minutes as well that costs you 12 million quid. It just doesn't happen. So I hope he goes to PSV and I hope he gets his career back on track. Just a little update here on Dorgu's wages. Hopefully we've not thrown the bank at him. We've tweeted this. This is coming from Matt Critchley, who's a friend of the channel. He was on the other week. He says he'll earn around 40k a week at Manchester United. The 20-year-old signed a contract until 2030 with the option of a further year. That seems very sensible, doesn't it? Players getting 40 grand a week. But let's not forget, that's a lot more than he will have been on at Lecce. Yeah? It makes sense. It always amazes me. It's like the Anthony one. I don't want to keep going on about Anthony because I talk about him a lot, but it's a good example of baffling wages. Where Anthony was on about 25k a week at Ajax. We buy him and then he gets like a 1,000% pay rise or whatever it was. Where he goes from 25k a week to about 200k a week. And you think, well, why? Why has he not gone up to 50k a week? Why have we not doubled his wages? Surely that would have been a positive move for him and he'd have been happy with it. Like, I don't understand this idea of just everyone who signs United has to be given an absolute king's ransom as the wage. Dorgu obviously isn't, and maybe this is a shift in policy from Ineos as well, where we're going to see an end to these days of players coming in. You look at Casemiro, came in and got what, 350k a week or something, some people were saying. And we're still suffering with that. He's getting paid 300k a week to sit on the bench. It's ridiculous. Marcus Rashford is another one. At least you could argue, okay, Marcus Rashford had that season where it looked like he was, going to be committing the rest of his career to Manchester United, but still, it was a lot of money. We made him one of the highest paid players in the league, and it backfired on us. We've got to start being more savvy with wages, and it seems as though we are doing with Patrick Dorgu. I don't begrudge players playing for Manchester United getting paid well. You should. Manchester United, regardless of what the Glazers have done, are a big club that earn and generate a lot of revenue. So I think your pay should reflect that to a certain degree, but you shouldn't be getting ridiculous wages, especially not when you're a 20-year-old who's just signed for Manchester United. So this makes sense. Usmus says Anthony's on 200k a week. He's on about 100k a week. All right, then we quadrupled his wages. I don't even know if that's true, to be honest with you, but even so, it's still far too much. Brookie says Sky Sports are crap. Okay. I've not really got a dog in that fight, I'm being brutally honest with you. There's one or two that I quite like. I like that myself, obviously. I was chatting to him yesterday. There's one or two others that we chat to, but I'm not a massive fan either way, to be honest with you. David Pearson says, I love Amorim. Definitely in, not out. Right, okay. Yeah, I agree. I love Ruben Amorim. Make sure you are hitting that like button as well. I think, we've got here 100 likes. That's ridiculous. David Pearson says, big up to Jay and the boys for still maintaining the spirit to bring us the content in the light of all these poor performances. Yeah, look, it is difficult at the minute being a United fan. It is, especially when we certain ones of a certain age, we're used to winning titles and Champions Leagues. Even if you're younger, you won the FA Cup last season. You saw your side win that, and now we're having to watch us get beat week in, week out. It is difficult to stomach, but we've been in much darker times as Manchester United fans, so you do have some faith that we will prevail. And hopefully, Ruben Amorim gets the transfer window he needs in the summer. He can be the man to carry us forward and get Manchester United back to where we belong at the very, very top. I'm going to leave it there. Make sure you are hitting like, share and subscribe. We're going to be back later on loads of videos coming up. We're going to have, I think we've got Uncensored, we've had a McCullough and Joe Smith as well coming up. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on that. I'm Jay Motty. This has been a Paper Talk. Thanks for watching.